What's the sickest you've ever been? The kind of sick where you genuinely thought you might not make it, and what happened? Story 1. The last time I detoxed off of adult beverage. I had been sober for about 3 months and then relapsed over a weekend and drank like 2 half-gallons of Tito's over Satsun, and subsequently Monday before I snapped out of it. I had some legal stuff going on and was too afraid to go to the ER, so I begged a biker dude I barely had just met to bring me a 6-pack of beer because I was so sick by Monday that I was detoxing already and could barely walk to pee. And I needed to taper down and have someone make sure I didn't die for a day. He said he'd do it if I bought him some Coke, so I gave him the cash for it, and I detoxed hard for a day. Sweats, shaking, I couldn't get comfortable, couldn't get warm, hallucinations, and I couldn't get a stupid TV jingle out of my head for hours. I kept dry heaving and almost shoot myself. I laid on the hardwood floor because that was the only place I could be cold and warm at the same time, under a blanket. I remember wondering if I was going to die. Yeah, biker dude said he would never do that again, and it was the scariest shoot he'd seen in his life. But he did clean the ever-living fudge out of my kitchen. 6 months and some change, sober now, thank fudge. Answer: that's incredible. You're doing amazing, and I'm proud of you. Keep up the good work, one day at a time. Also, if, for whatever reason, someone you know end up in a similar situation again, please go to the ER. It is so dangerous to detox from adult beverage alone. Even if you've never had a withdrawal seizure before, it can happen and it can eliminate you. The ER staff do not care about your legal problems, unless maybe you were a murderer on the run or something LOL. They are there to care for your health and not take you to court. Story 2. I was 17 when they told me I had stage 3 testicular cancer. I laughed when the doctor said it nervous reflex, I guess. It started with a weird ache I kept brushing off. Then came the swelling, the exhaustion, the weight just melting off me. Chemo hit like a truck. I was puking, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My hair was gone in 2 weeks. I remember one night, hooked up to machines, chest on fire, and I looked at my sister and said, if I don't wake up, I'm okay with it. I'm just so darn tired. I did wake up. Barely. Went through 2 more rounds. It broke me in 100 ways, but the tumors shrank. Eventually, they said the word remission. I walked out slower, weaker, but alive. Thought I wouldn't make it, but I did. Story 3. About the same time last year, had surgery to remove a polyp, was supposed to be only an overnight stay, became really ill during the night and had extreme pain in my tummy area. Overnight nurse was so concerned she called the surgeon at home. A whole team burst into my room to hook me up to a heart monitor, oxygen, and an IV that thankfully also contained morphine. The surgery resulted in a case of acute necrotizing pancreatitis and a 3-week stay in the hospital. Things were a little blurry back then, but I remember having a moment when it felt I was dying, just floating away into peace. And I remember thinking, I think I might be dying. I thought I would fight it more. Still healing 1 year later. Answer: holy F, pancreatitis hurts so badly. I got it after my gallbladder removal on top of a GI bleed. I was actively dying. My BP was dipping so low and heart rate spiking randomly. They thought I was going to have a heart attack. The whole floor came in and was absolutely reamed by the doctor in front of me as I was being hooked up to a defibrillator for not notifying him of what was happening. I have never seen 20-odd people look so ashamed. My fun part was I felt mostly fine, just extremely tired and couldn't stay awake for more than 30 minutes at a time. Story 4. I had COVID, then half a year later I caught an RSV. I never got better. I had lung issues, brain issues, and lost my taste and smell. I was sick in a way that I don't think a doctor can fix, aside from steroids. And I slept a lot. I remember thinking I was dying. It was like a tide that pulls back sand as it recedes. Still not better, but not dying. Answer: I'm pretty sure I've never really recovered from COVID either. I know I had it twice. One time was okay. Next time I was in the hospital. I thought I got over it, but my life has slowly just went down. I really feel like losing my sense of smell and taste has taken a toll on my mental health. I really didn't account for because I was already depressed. I have to take breaks on long walks if it's too hot or hilly or whatever excuse I make up for why I have to stop for a minute. It's like I get winded, have to sit down. Never had to do that. I figured I'm just getting older. I feel like I keep blaming other stuff, but something definitely changed. I know what you mean about the tide. It's like I've slowly just felt shittier and shittier. Not too drastic over time, just slowly dying, lol. Story 5. Gave birth. When I got home, I had a feeling of impending doom. I told my husband we likely have to go to the ER, check my BP and it's in-stroke territory. Postpartum preeclampsia with severe features. No secondary symptoms other than BP and impending doom. Stayed in the hospital a few days until they got my BP under control. Answer: also giving birth. Both times. First time was super swollen and that doom-feeling anxiety. 2 pulmonary embolisms. No noticeable chest pain. Second time started hemorrhaging after delivering placenta. I remember DRS starts coming in and introducing themselves, and the chief anesthesiologist came and wouldn't let me not keep eye contact, and I was feeling super tired, and people would yell my name if I closed my eyes. I lost 2 and a bit liters of blood, and they kept yelling my blood pressure, and it was down to 60/30. I remember thinking, darn, why is the chief guys here? I must be in trouble, and then I got chest pain that was like my whole chest was on fire. This was like a month ago. My husband joked that third strike I'd be out. I feel like he may be right. I guess our family is done. LOL. Story 6. Spinal cord tumor, waiting to hear what grade it was. Luckily, it was grade 2, but it can come back possibly as grade 3, cancerous. It's been almost 10 years now, and twice yearly MRIs show it is still gone. Here's hoping it stays that way. Story 7. Lost my mind after taking multiple substances. Had an out-of-body experience where I felt super wet, like I was coming out of an incubation tank. Then I wanted to go lie down on my bed, but my mind manifested my mate who guided me back to my body. In hindsight, I feel like if I lay down, that was gonna be it. Eventually came back into my body and was stuck in a loop of going to the kitchen and my room. Genuinely terrifying experience. Story 8. Herpangina. For almost 2 weeks, everything going down by throat. Food, water, saliva. Felt like swallowing broken glass. Lived on incredibly minuscule amounts of water in a fever state, waiting for it to end. Story 9. 10 years ago, I picked up a random chest infection that started off as a bad cough, but developed into a post-nasal drip. This meant my sinuses would regularly drip mucus down the back of my throat into my lungs. While the goop was in my lungs, it would dry out a little, and eventually I'd cough it up. But it would have the consistency of glue, and it would immediately block my throat, causing me to choke. I would then have to retch, hoping to clear my throat before I choked to passing. It could take a couple minutes to clear my throat. All the while, I didn't know if I'd survive as my vision started to dim, and I slowly lost consciousness. This was happening every few hours for a week. But the absolute worst part was that it would happen while I was asleep. I'd just suddenly wake up, already choking and with my lungs only partially filled with air, so I could never be sure my body would have enough air pressure to clear my throat. I was so afraid of it happening that I went without sleep for 3 days, but it got to the point I knew I could no longer keep myself awake. I lived alone and there was no one nearby that could look after me. So I put out extra helpings of cat food and water out, because I knew it'd be a few days before someone discovered my body. I drifted off to sleep, knowing that I'd soon wake up again with a blocked throat. Luckily, I was able to eventually fight off the infection, and the drip stopped. Worst thing that ever happened to me. Answer: oh my God, I've never met anyone else that experienced that too. I had that exact thing so frequently as a kid from chronic sinus infections, and then again with COVID. Waking up with your throat blocked is a special kind of terror. I'd cry when it was time to go to sleep because I knew it would happen again at some point in the night. It's hell. It's so terrifying, and nothing helps it. Not really. Even the things that are supposed to help thin mucus and make it easier to get out. I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's traumatic, honestly. I hope you never have to experience it again. Story 10. I went into serotonin shock after starting a new OCD medication. I had no idea what was happening, and I couldn't make my body speak or call for help. In my brain, I was begging for 911 and felt that this was how I would die. I can't say that I could see myself going through it, but it felt like any stereotypical depiction of heroin withdrawal or overdose, or maybe them both together. I probably looked like one of those videos of women you see flailing around on the ground high on substances. I was finally able to stand and function well enough a full week later to tell someone about it. But no one I know knew anything about that either, so I waited for my 6-week checkup with my primary doctor before telling her what happened, because of course I didn't want to bother her, and took the medication the whole time. She was mortified, and by that time my psychiatrist was afraid taking me off the medication would make it happen again, and I wasn't currently having any major side effects, so they let me ride it out. That was 3 years ago or so. For what it's worth, the medication is life-changing, and I still take it daily. Answer: I was totally overcome when I took Geodon. I was alone on a second-floor apartment and called 911. I heard emergency personnel knocking on the bottom door, not knowing to come up the outside stairs. I crawled, slithered out the door, and threw my huge keychain down the stairs to get their attention. They came upstairs and told me repeatedly to just get up. All I could see was their boots. They thought I was white girl partied too hard. It was early on a Friday evening. Finally, they loaded me up on a gurney and brought me to the ambulance. They told me my vital signs were fine. I still couldn't talk or move on my own. I told the attendant I was scared, mouthed the words. I gripped his hand and wouldn't let go the whole ride. I was in the hospital for about 12 hours until the tingling and numbness and weakness subsided, and I was able to walk to the bathroom with a little assistance. Story 11. Had a severe vertigo attack that lasted 2 full weeks. I was sweating profusely and dry heaving after vomiting. Was able to feed myself with squeeze packets of baby food and crawling on the floor to the toilet. Had 2 loud frequencies of ringing in my ear, and the worst was when the signals crossed. At the end of 2 weeks, I was deaf in that ear and the nerve was dead. During the 2 weeks, I had no sleep and did not know what reality was. Story 12. Had pleurisy in my left lung around 25. Couldn't take more than a tiny breath, and it hurt like hell. It felt like what I imagine being stabbed in the chest feels like. Couldn't sleep, hardly. Couldn't lie down. Lasted a couple of weeks. Had to work through it cause no insurance. Own 10 wouldn't recommend. Story 13. I had acute tonsillitis whilst working alone in the office. I'd never had it before, and it hit me quick. I didn't know at the time what was wrong with me, and when I went to work, I felt a little bit rough, but a few hours later, I was laying on the floor, shivering, with a high fever, sweats, and barely able to talk. I don't know how long I was laying on the floor, wondering what was wrong, before I got the energy to call someone to take me to AE. I later had to have my tonsils, adenoids, and excess soft tissues in my throat removed once the antibiotics had done their job. Story 14. Probably kidney stones and appendicitis. Kidney stones, the most pain I've ever been in. Passed out several times. Appendicitis didn't listen to my body. Brushed it off, thinking it'll come right. Nope. Emergency surgery. Appendix was gangrenous and ready to burst. Dodged a bullet there, but still an idiot. Story 15. Stage 3 lymphoma diagnosis at age 29. Responded to treatment, but keeps coming back. I've had 5 relapses for a total of 6 treatments, one of which, 4, was a bone marrow stem cell transplant. During the BMT, I developed pneumonia. I reached a point where I had no fugs left to give and didn't know if I even wanted to survive anymore. But here I am. Next CT and doctor visit next week. Story 16. I was 16 and got toxic shock syndrome, TSS, from tampon use. When they tell you don't leave it in too long, they're not kidding around. I had such high fevers, I remember hallucinating while watching Freddy vs. Jason, and I thought I could see the gears in my brain, working and ticking away, while talking to Freddy Krueger LOL. Then the diarrhea started, and it was like water every 10 minutes. I shat the bed. I remember being delirious on the ground, watching the sheets being stripped, while I continued just leaking my bowels on the ground. I stood up. It continued to pour out of me. Absolutely. No control of it. Then I started throwing up, all while having a sore throat that felt like razor blades every time I swallowed or, threw up some more. I slept a lot when I wasn't shoot myself. After all that, my entire body developed a red rash and my full body peeled, hands and feet being the worst. It was like layers of dead skinning coming off me. The worst week of my life right there. I've had COVID, the flu, chickenpox as an adult, given natural birth twice and had an abscessed tooth, and honestly, the humiliation of not being able to control my body was the worst of it all. Story 17. I think the worst I've ever been was when I ended up in hospital for a week with viral meningitis. I was at school when I suddenly had severe headache with the lights hurting my eyes, rash the whole way up both arms. I was in science. My teacher wouldn't let me go to the nurse due to other kids in the lesson messing around. She told me to do my work and go after class. I couldn't keep my eyes open, so head was on my desk. The science tech came in to bring Bunsen burners in. She asked what was wrong, and the teacher talking over here was saying there was nothing wrong with me, and I was clearly just trying to get out of work. Once I explained to the tech about the headache and lights, she took my temp, and then she spotted the rash. She ran to get a glass, and it didn't disappear. She called 999 while making a friend use my phone to call my mom. She told me after I was back at school, she reported the teacher to the head teacher. Mom made it to the school somehow before the ambulance, so her car then got locked in the school. Thankfully, Dad had a car, A week after I was discharged, however, still had to keep an IV in, and a nurse came to the house for 10 days for antibiotics. I panic every time. My kids get a rash. 2 of them have actually given us this scare too. Thankfully, it wasn't. Story 18. I once had food poisoning so bad that I thought I was gonna die. I had this blinding pain from a migraine, and I was throwing up. It felt like razor blades in my stomach. I ended up on the floor sobbing because I was in so much pain and was begging for it to end. I woke up in the morning and I was completely fine. Story 19. Not to be that guy, but my mental health at its lowest was horrendous. Rock bottom kept getting deeper. From the ages of 11 and a half to 18, I thought of tragic end every single day. The depression garnered anxiety. Then the anxiety planted paranoia, which reached an insane level. Quite literally, the stress gave me tics, and I couldn't even eat, sleep, or drink sometimes. I've attempted upwards of 7 times. Planning and being this close is not included. Otherwise, we'd be in the 10s and maybe 20s. On top of all that, I was 16 when it was pointed out I definitely have ADHD, and 17 when people started telling me I showed signs of autism. Genuinely, I don't know how I didn't die from at least some of the attempts. Some were understandable, but there's some that bewilder me. I also don't know how I didn't get a severe infection from self-harm. That bewilders me still. I'm going to be 21 in 2 months. Life has been cruel in many ways, but the joy I feel when I get to do the things I love and doing things in a manner that's unusual to some, but it makes sense to me. 15-year-old me wouldn't recognize me. 17-year-old me wanted so bad to be who I am now, minus a lot of trauma. I'm really happy I'm here. Plus, now I get to joke about it and I cope in cool ways often. Life is a roller coaster, but I'm learning how to hold on. Story 20. I had COVID for around 70 days, and at one point it gave me bronchitis while I had the COVID, so I was coughing for around 5 minutes and gasping for air in between, which scared the living hell out of me, but TBH, I don't think I would have died looking back on it now. Story 21. In July of 23, I woke up around midnight. Couldn't breathe. I suspected I was having a heart attack. Walked into the ER. My husband drove me. Said barely able to speak the words heart attack. Rushed into triage. They start taking my pressure and oxygen level. Oxygen was at 80. They were asking me questions. Apparently, I had a cardiac arrest at that point. The next thing I remember is hearing someone using my full first name, telling me to open my eyes and look at them. No one uses my real first name. Like, seriously, no one. Once I was coherent, it was explained to me what had happened. Around 6-7 hours had passed. I was stable enough for an angiogram. I had 2 100 blockages and an 80. That afternoon, I had a triple bypass operation heart surgery. Recovery was difficult. However, I have worked hard, and my last echo shows my heart is currently at a 55, which is considered normal. I'm not in heart failure any longer. I had no idea. Yes, I have an extensive family history of heart disease. However, my personal history had always been good. No high blood pressure or other indicators. Slightly high cholesterol, but nothing crazy high, or to the point my doctor wanted to put me on meds either. I actually didn't take a single RX prior to this. My surgeon was a pediatric cardiac surgeon because my anatomy is considered small. I'm a small lady. He no doubt saved my life. I'm told my surgery took about 9 hours. He said he had to work very slowly and it was intricate, but that's his specialty. I was his last patient before he retired. He just happened to be in the hospital that morning and was asked to look at my case. I don't know if I would have survived had he not been there. Apparently, it was dire that the surgery be done immediately, despite its risk. Thank you, Dr. T. Story 22. C. diff, probably from an improperly sanitized piece of used medical equipment and cross-contamination. My fault, most likely. Somehow got pneumonia at the same time. I was a few hours from passing when I went to the ER. Story 23. Was fairly new at getting very strong chemo for an aggressive cancer. I lost all my hair just hours after the first treatment. I overheard a young nurse say that some patients just upchuck until it passes, like flu, rather than taking pills for nausea. Wrong. I upchucked every couple hours for almost 4 days on no food. I was afraid I would die and then was afraid I wouldn't. Couldn't lift my arms or walk. Was taken to the ER and given every intravenous fluid known to man. It took 5 hours, but I could stand up after it at least. Cancer is a meanie. This was 5 years ago. I'm cancer-free. Now, thank you, science. Story 24. When I was younger, I used to get very severe tonsillitis. Like, I would have to get penicillin injections. I had been sent to the hospital for IV antibiotics multiple times because my throat would almost close up completely. So, this one time when I was 19 or 20, I got tonsillitis again. About a week later, I was just getting worse. But now I also had a cough and it hurt to breathe. I had developed pneumonia. I had super high fevers. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It hurt to cough because of my tonsillitis. But I had to cough constantly. It was like I was choking on nothing when I coughed. I felt like I was just going to stop breathing, and that was going to be the end of me. I ended up in hospital overnight for the first time ever, so they could pump a shootload of antibiotics into me for 24 hours. It helped a lot, but I was still really sick for ages after that. Like, I was this 19, 20-year-old crying for her mom because it just hurt to be alive. I was so scared I didn't know what was wrong. Story 25. I got complications from chemo treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma. Got within a few hours of passing before I got pulled back. I put it in quotations because the docs still don't know what it was or why it happened. All I knew was that my heart rate was 178 laying down. My oxygen was dipping under 80, for which they couldn't provide me with oxygen due to one of the chemo substances. Bleomycin is a meanie. And I had a rolling fever of 104 degrees. Let me tell you, there is no feeling on this earth that is as doom-like as being oxygen-hungry for an extended period of time. I wouldn't wish that feeling on my worst enemy. In any case, I got really close. One day, after a week in the ICU, I knew it was my last. The docs were out of ideas. They had tried antibiotics, antifungals, antivirals. They really took the kitchen sink approach. Heart stress tests, an esophageal echocardiogram. You name it, nothing was working. When you get that close, you can feel it. For me, at least, passing became like a physical presence in the room with me. I'm not sure I can quite describe the feeling. I didn't want to go because I had a wife and 2 kids and begged the universe to let me stay. Call it praying or whatever you want. I'm not religious. It felt like it would be the easiest thing in the world to just let go, to give in. Maybe it was the fever, but it felt like I was being called home. Like I was about to become part of something so much infinitely bigger than myself again. Back to where I came from. I wasn't scared of it, and I don't think when you're at that point that it will be scary. It just is. It feels inviting. I think you just let go and go. Anyway, that was 5 years ago this month, so clearly I got better. Later that last day, after some begging on my part, after seeing a post on Reddit from someone with similar symptoms, the docs gave me a really strong dose of steroids that they had sworn wouldn't do anything, and it worked. My oncologist told me later that he saw me slipping away, and they didn't know what else to do, so they tried it, and they still don't know why it worked or what happened. But thankfully, I'm still here and about to hit my cure date in a couple of months.